New Sweden, a forgotten chapter in American colonial history. In the annals of American colonial history, the tale of New Sweden stands as a unique and often overlooked chapter, a story of ambition, cultural convergence, and a fleeting moment of European expansion in the New World. From 1638 to 1655, along the peaceful yet strategically vital Delaware River, a Swedish colony took root, leaving an indelible mark on the landscape and history of what would become the United States. The early 17th century was a period of intense geopolitical maneuvering, as European powers vied for dominance in the Old World and the New. The 30 Years' War, 1618 to 1648, one of the most devastating conflicts in European history, saw Sweden emerge as a formidable military power under the leadership of King Gustavus Adolphus. This war, rooted in religious and political disputes, reshaped the map of Europe and gave Sweden the opportunity to assert itself as a leading Protestant nation. Amidst this backdrop of warfare and power struggles, Sweden sought to expand its influence beyond Europe. The idea of establishing a colony in North America was not just about territorial gain, but also about economic opportunity and religious freedom. The Swedish crown and private investors alike were enticed by the prospects of trade, particularly in furs, and the chance to spread Lutheran Christianity in a new land. Thus, the vision of New Sweden was born, a colony that would serve as a Swedish foothold in the New World. In 1637, the Swedish South Company was established to finance and manage the colonial venture. The following year, in the spring of 1638, the first Swedish expedition, led by Peter Minuit, arrived on the shores of the Delaware River. Minuit, an experienced colonial administrator who had previously served as the director of the Dutch colony of New Netherland, was tasked with securing a base of operations for the Swedes. The expedition landed at the site of present-day Wilmington, Delaware, where they established Fort Christina, named in honor of Queen Christina of Sweden, who ascended to the throne at the age of 6 after the death of her father, Gustavus Adolphus, in 1632. The choice of location was strategic. The fort was situated on a rocky promontory that allowed for easy defense against both European rivals and potential Native American adversaries. Fort Christina served as the nucleus of the New Sweden colony. Over the next several years, additional settlers arrived, and the colony expanded. By the early 1640s, New Sweden had established several outposts and settlements along the Delaware River, extending its reach into what is now New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Maryland. These settlements were often located near existing Native American villages, facilitating trade and interaction between the Swedes and the indigenous peoples. The population of New Sweden was a diverse mix of Swedes, Finns, and Dutch, reflecting the multicultural makeup of the Swedish Empire at the time. The Finns, in particular, played a significant role in the colony's development. Many of the Finnish settlers were skilled woodsmen and farmers, experienced in the art of slash-and-burn agriculture, a technique well suited to the dense forests of the Delaware Valley. Their expertise in timber cutting and land clearing proved invaluable in transforming the wilderness into arable farmland. Life in New Sweden was challenging but also full of opportunity. The settlers worked hard to build homes, cultivate the land, and establish a thriving fur trade with the local Lenape and Susquehannock tribes. Relations between the Swedes and the indigenous peoples were generally peaceful and cooperative, thanks in part to the efforts of colonial leaders who prioritized diplomacy and mutual respect. The Swedes brought with them not only European agricultural techniques but also a strong sense of community and religious devotion. Lutheran churches were established in the colony, and the settlers sought to maintain their cultural traditions, even as they adapted to the new environment. Swedish customs, language, and governance practices took root in the New World, creating a distinct colonial identity that would endure even after the fall of the colony. One of the most remarkable aspects of New Sweden was the relatively harmonious relationship between the colonists and the Native American tribes of the region. From the outset, the Swedish settlers recognized the importance of cultivating good relations with the indigenous peoples. The Lenape and Susquehannock were powerful tribes with established trade networks, and the success of the colony depended on cooperation rather than conflict. The Swedes engaged in extensive trade with the Native Americans, exchanging European goods such as metal tools, firearms, and textiles for valuable furs, particularly beaver pelts, which were in high demand in Europe. This trade was mutually beneficial and helped to sustain the colony economically. The Swedes also learned from the Native Americans, adopting certain agricultural practices and incorporating local knowledge into their own way of life. Treaties were negotiated between the Swedish authorities and the tribal leaders, often formalized through gift exchanges and ceremonial gatherings. These treaties helped to ensure a stable and peaceful coexistence, with the Swedes respecting the land rights and sovereignty of the Native American tribes. Unlike some other European colonizers, the Swedes did not seek to impose their culture or religion on the indigenous peoples, which contributed to the relatively peaceful relations. However, this peace was not without its challenges. As the colony grew, the demand for land increased, leading to tensions over territory. Additionally, the presence of other European powers in the region, particularly the Dutch and the English, complicated the political landscape. The Native American tribes found themselves navigating a complex web of alliances and rivalries as they sought to protect their interests in an ever-changing colonial environment. While New Sweden enjoyed relative peace with the Native Americans, its relationship with neighboring European colonies was far more contentious. The Dutch, who controlled the nearby colony of New Netherland, viewed the Swedish presence on the Delaware River as a direct threat to their own colonial ambitions. The two colonies were in close proximity, with only the river separating them, leading to inevitable competition over resources and territory. Tensions between New Sweden and New Netherland began to escalate in the 1640s. The Dutch, under the leadership of Director General Willem Kieft, attempted to assert control over the Delaware River by building a fort near present-day Newcastle, Delaware, effectively cutting off New Sweden from the Atlantic Ocean. The Swedes, in turn, responded by building additional forts further up the river, solidifying their presence and challenging Dutch authority. Despite these tensions, open conflict was avoided for several years, as both colonies were more focused on dealing with internal challenges and external threats from other European powers. However, the uneasy peace could not last indefinitely, and the seeds of conflict were sown as both sides sought to expand their influence in the region. The fate of New Sweden was ultimately sealed by events in Europe. The Second Northern War, 1655 to 1660, a conflict involving Sweden, Poland, Russia, and Denmark, drained Swedish resources and diverted attention away from the colony. Sensing an opportunity, the Dutch, under the leadership of the formidable Peter Stuyvesant, launched a military campaign against New Sweden in the summer of 1655. Stuyvesant's forces, well-equipped and outnumbering the Swedish defenders, quickly overwhelmed the colony's defenses. Fort Christina, the symbolic heart of New Sweden, fell after a brief siege, and the colony was formally surrendered to the Dutch. With the fall of Fort Christina, New Sweden was absorbed into New Netherland, marking the end of Sweden's colonial ambitions in North America. The Dutch takeover was relatively peaceful, and the Swedish and Finnish settlers were allowed to remain in their homes, provided they swore allegiance to the Dutch authorities. Many of the settlers chose to stay, continuing to live and work in the region under Dutch rule. The cultural and religious practices of the Swedish settlers persisted, even as the colony became part of a different empire. Although New Sweden was short-lived, its impact on the region was significant and long-lasting. The settlers who remained after the Dutch conquest continued to influence the cultural and social fabric of the Delaware Valley. Swedish and Finnish customs, language, and religious practices blended with those of the Dutch and, later, the English, creating a unique cultural heritage that is still evident today. One of the most enduring legacies of New Sweden is its contribution to the early development of American Lutheranism. The Swedish settlers established some of the first Lutheran churches in North America, and their descendants played a key role in spreading the Lutheran faith throughout the colonies. The oldest surviving Lutheran church in the United States, Gloria Dei, Old Swedes Church in Philadelphia, was founded by the Swedish settlers of New Sweden and remains a testament to their enduring influence. Place names across the region also bear witness to the Swedish presence. Towns such as Swedesboro in New Jersey and Christina in Delaware reflect the colony's legacy. Additionally, the influence of Swedish architecture, particularly in the construction of log cabins, can be seen in the traditional building styles that became common in the American frontier. The relationship between the Swedish settlers and the Native American tribes, characterized by diplomacy and mutual respect, stands as an example of how different cultures can coexist peacefully. While the history of European colonization in North America is often marked by conflict and displacement, the story of New Sweden offers a glimpse of an alternative path, one where collaboration and cultural exchange were possible. Today, the story of New Sweden is commemorated through historical sites, museums, and cultural events that celebrate the Swedish heritage of the Delaware Valley. Fort Christina, now a National Historic Landmark, serves as a reminder of the colony's humble beginnings and its place in the broader narrative of American history. Each year, the region hosts events such as Swedish Colonial Day, where descendants of the original settlers and history enthusiasts come together to honor the legacy of New Sweden. These celebrations highlight the rich cultural tapestry that emerged from the blending of Swedish, Finnish, Dutch, and Native American traditions. In academic circles, The history of New Sweden has garnered renewed interest in recent years, as scholars seek to shed light on this overlooked chapter of American colonial history. Research into the colony's political, economic, and cultural dynamics has revealed new insights into the complexities of early European settlement in the New World. The story of New Sweden may be a lesser-known episode in the grand narrative of American history, but it is no less important. It is a story of ambition, resilience, and cultural exchange, set against the backdrop of a rapidly changing world. The settlers of New Sweden carved out a place for themselves in an unfamiliar land, leaving a legacy that would endure long after the colony itself had disappeared. As we reflect on the history of New Sweden, we are reminded that the United States is a nation built on the contributions of many different peoples and cultures. The Swedish settlers who braved the Atlantic crossing in the 17th century were part of a larger tapestry of immigrants who came to the New World in search of opportunity and a better life. Their story is a testament to the diversity and richness of America's colonial past, a past that continues to shape the present in ways both seen and unseen. New Sweden may have been short-lived, but its impact is still felt today. The colony's legacy lives on in the cultural traditions, place names, and historical memory of the Delaware Valley. It serves as a reminder that even the smallest and most transient of colonies can leave a lasting mark on history, influencing the course of a nation's development and contributing to the rich mosaic of its identity.